Michael Jordan's handwritten letter to his kids leaked, what he admitted inside shocked fans. The rain tapped gently on the windows of the Florida estate as Michael Jordan sat alone in the den. The glow from the fireplace danced across the floor, but his mind was elsewhere. Tonight was supposed to be simple, just a quiet family dinner with his kids, no cameras, no reporters, just real time together. But the silence that followed the meal was heavier than usual. He sensed it. Something was off. Marcus had barely touched his food. Jasmine smiled like always but kept glancing at her phone. Jeff stayed mostly quiet, swirling his drink, pretending to listen. They weren't kids anymore, and he wasn't the superhero they used to watch dominate the court. He was their father now, just a man trying to hold a legacy together without losing what mattered most. The next morning, Michael's phone buzzed nonstop. Calls. Messages. Mentions. A name he didn't recognize had posted on Reddit around 3 a.m., an anonymous user with one post only, a high-quality scan of a handwritten letter. His letter. The one he wrote a year ago. He froze. The image had already gone viral. Under the grainy but legible paper, the headline read, "Michael Jordan's letter to his kids reveals deep regret. I was terrified I'd die unknown to you." He didn't move. Didn't breathe for a moment. The world knew now. Not about his titles, or the points, or the legacy. About the thing he never planned to show anyone but his kids. Within an hour, it was on ESPN, TMZ, every sports outlet imaginable. Pundits argued whether it was real. Analysts dug into the handwriting. Fans flooded Twitter with sympathy, shock, disbelief. But Michael didn't care about any of that. He wanted to know one thing: how did it get out? Downstairs, the kitchen buzzed with tension. Marcus scrolled through his feed, reading comments aloud in disbelief. Never thought MJ feared anything. Makes me see him different now. He was human all along. He looked up. This is insane. Jasmine looked crushed. Dad didn't even want this public. Jeff nodded. Someone broke trust. Someone close. They all glanced at each other. That night, the three of them confronted their father. He was standing by the window, staring out into the dark. Marcus was the first to speak. "You wrote that for us?" Michael nodded, eyes fixed on the distance. "After Kobe died. I couldn't sleep for weeks. Kept thinking, what if I went tomorrow, and you never really knew how I felt about everything?" Jasmine stepped forward. "It was beautiful, Dad. But now it's everywhere." "I didn't give it to anyone," Michael said slowly. "Not the press. Not the Hall of Fame. Just you three." A beat passed. Then another. "So one of us leaked it?" Marcus asked, disbelief creeping into his voice. "Come on." Michael turned around. "No. I'm not accusing. But someone had access." Tension settled in like a weight across the room. They all knew the truth, only a few people had been trusted with that letter. It had been folded neatly in an envelope, tucked in the drawer of his personal study. Only family and 2 longtime staffers knew about it. And he hadn't opened that drawer in months. By the following day, sports talk shows were calling it the most honest moment of MJ's life. The letter had lines that pierced through decades of myth. "Sometimes I felt like I had to win at being your father, the same way I won games. But parenting isn't a scoreboard. And I don't know if I did enough to earn your love outside the court. I was afraid, truly afraid, that I would be remembered by millions but forgotten by the only people who ever mattered. That's my regret. That basketball, as much as it gave me, took something too. Time. Time with you." Fans were crying. Athletes were reposting it with words like respect and powerful. But inside the Jordan house, things were falling apart. Marcus walked the estate grounds that evening with Jasmine. It's like everyone's talking about how brave he is, but they don't know he's sitting inside trying to figure out which one of us let this out. Jasmine shook her head. "I didn't touch it. You know that, right?" I didn't either. He paused. But he's not wrong to wonder. You saw the comments. They think it makes him more human. The press is eating this up. Maybe someone close wanted that. You think someone did it on purpose? I don't know. He exhaled. But this feels too personal. Too calculated. Later that night, Jeff pulled Marcus aside. You ever think maybe it wasn't us at all? What do you mean? Jeff hesitated. That study drawer wasn't locked. And Dad's brother Larry came by last month, remember? Stayed a few days. Dad wasn't here, but Larry was. Marcus looked confused. Uncle Larry? He's been out of the picture for years. Exactly. The idea hit hard. Larry had always lived in the shadow of his brother, the most famous athlete in the world. Their relationship had been distant for years. Quiet resentment, buried under polite small talk. They brought it up to Michael the next morning. At first, he dismissed it. Larry? No. He wouldn't do that. But doubt crept into his voice. Jeff pressed. He was alone in the house. You weren't even here. Silence. Michael sat down, rubbed his hands over his face. I wrote that letter because I didn't know how to say it out loud, he said. And now the whole world's reading it. He looked up at his kids. I just wanted you to know I was sorry for the things I missed. Marcus softened. We know, Dad. But whoever did this, they didn't do it for us. Michael stood. Then we find out who did. The next few days were filled with calls, quiet investigations, private messages. MJ didn't speak to the media. He didn't issue a statement. But behind the scenes, he was digging. And with every hour that passed, more cracks appeared in the family's trust. The world now had a new image of Michael Jordan, not the killer instinct, not the fire-eyed competitor, but the father who carried guilt like a shadow. And someone, somewhere, had decided the world needed to see that version of him. Whether he was ready or not. Michael stared at the printed Reddit thread in his hands. It had been downloaded, re-uploaded, picked apart by journalists, fans, and psychologists. They called it a revelation, a raw confession from the most private man in sports. But to him, it was just a letter never meant for anyone but his children. He placed the printout down and turned to Marcus, Jasmine, and Jeff, who sat across from him. The silence between them was heavy. The question no one wanted to ask still lingered. I need the truth, Michael said, calm but firm. If any of you shared it, I'll forgive you. But I need to know. None of them spoke. Jasmine looked hurt. Jeff shook his head. Marcus stood, pacing. This is ridiculous, Marcus snapped. We're your kids. We didn't leak your damn letter. Michael didn't argue. He simply nodded, then walked away. Later that afternoon, MJ's longtime assistant, Ron, quietly approached him in the study. There's something you should see, Ron said, placing a tablet in front of him. It was a private tech report, traced back to the Reddit post's IP. The anonymous poster used a VPN, but one digital fingerprint slipped through, a backup email linked to the account. The name was a shock. LarryMJ23backup@gmail.com. Michael froze. Larry? Ron hesitated. Your brother used this when he asked for access to the estate's Wi-Fi last time he visited. Same device. Same network. It didn't make sense. Larry was blood. They had their issues, but betrayal? Not like this. Michael didn't call him. Not right away. Instead, he went out to the private court behind the house. Ball in hand, he shot quietly for almost an hour. No cameras. No crowd. Just the sound of the rim and his own thoughts. The betrayal wasn't just about privacy, it was about timing. That letter was written the night after Kobe Bryant's memorial. Michael hadn't spoken to anyone that night. Just poured everything into those 2 pages and sealed them. It wasn't polished. It wasn't pretty. But it was his truth. And now it was being quoted on t-shirts. Later that night, Jasmine came into the study holding her phone. "Dad," she said softly, "you need to see this." Someone had just posted a video clip from an old podcast Larry did over a year ago. In it, he spoke vaguely about MJ the Myth and said, "Sometimes, people don't get to control their own legacy. And maybe that's for the better." The comment section erupted. Most people didn't connect it to the leak, but Michael did. Still, he didn't call. He flew to Wilmington instead. When Larry opened the door, he looked surprised, but not guilty. "What's this about?" he asked. Michael walked past him, straight into the kitchen. "You tell me." Larry sighed, already defensive. "If you're here about that stupid Reddit thing." "I know it was you." A long pause. Larry didn't deny it. "Instead," he said, "you've been holding everything in for 30 years. That letter was the first honest thing you ever said about who you really are. That wasn't yours to share." "No, but you weren't going to. You were going to bury it with the trophies and the silence." Michael stared at him, jaw tight. "You did it for what? Attention? Justice?" "I did it because your kids deserved more than a folded apology in a drawer. Because the world worships a version of you that even you don't believe in." Michael turned to leave, his voice low. "You had no right." Larry followed. "You built an empire on control, Mike. But you never controlled the damage you left behind." Michael didn't respond. He got in the car and left. By the time he returned to Florida, news had already started shifting. Larry's name hadn't gone public, but speculation around someone close being the leak was catching fire. Fans argued. Some praised the vulnerability. Others accused MJ of orchestrating the leak himself for attention. The irony wasn't lost on him. A few days later, ESPN requested a televised interview. Michael refused. Then CBS. Then HBO. Each request more lucrative than the last. He turned them all down. Then he made a different call. "Set up a press conference," he told Ron. "No questions. Just me. One time. Then we're done." The announcement caused a frenzy. Rumors spread fast. Is he going to retire again? Is he endorsing a documentary? Is he sick? No one knew. The day of the conference, the room was packed. Reporters from every major outlet filled the seats. Cameras rolled. Michael Jordan walked to the podium. No suit. No flashy entrance. Just him in a gray sweater and jeans. He pulled out the original letter. Same folds. Same paper. Same shaky penmanship from that sleepless night. "I wrote this letter a year ago," he began, voice steady. "It wasn't for the public. It wasn't for a book. It was for my children. That's it." He paused, then continued. "I've spent most of my life chasing something: respect, greatness, perfection. I chased it so hard, I forgot to slow down. I forgot birthdays. I missed recitals. I missed dinners. I told myself I was doing it for them. And maybe that's half true. But the truth is, I did it for me." The room was silent. "I feared something I never said out loud. I feared I'd be remembered by the world but forgotten by my own kids." He looked up. "That letter was never meant to be seen. But now that it has, maybe it's time I stopped pretending it didn't matter." He folded the paper and stepped back. No questions. And just like that, he walked off stage. That night, the media exploded again, but this time, it was different. It wasn't about the leak anymore. It was about him, not the brand, but the man. Back at the estate, Marcus watched the press conference replay alone. For the first time, he saw his father as something other than a giant. "Maybe he finally figured it out," Marcus said, half to himself. Jasmine nodded from the hallway. "Or maybe he's finally letting us in." The door opened behind them. Michael stood there, quiet. He looked at his kids, and in a voice softer than they were used to, said, "I'd like to have dinner. Just us. No phones." They all exchanged glances. No one said a word. They simply followed him to the dining room. For the first time in a long time, it wasn't about the game. It was about family. But outside the gates, the world still buzzed. Not knowing the final twist was yet to come. 2 weeks had passed since Michael Jordan stood in front of the world and read the letter. The media had quieted. The headlines had faded. But something lingered, not in the public, but inside the family. Not everything broken had been put back together. Not yet. Michael spent most of his time at the estate now. No interviews. No events. Just days of walking the grounds, shooting in silence, or sitting at the dining table with his kids. Some dinners were easy. Others, not so much. The wounds were still fresh. But they were trying. And that mattered. Marcus still kept a bit of distance. He couldn't just forget the years of feeling like a footnote in someone else's legacy. Jasmine tried to bridge the gap, but even she knew time wouldn't erase everything. It could only soften it. Then, out of nowhere, Larry called. Michael let it ring the first time. The second time, he picked up. "You got what you wanted," Michael said flatly. "No," Larry replied. "I didn't." There was a pause. "I saw the press conference," Larry continued. "Didn't think you'd actually read it out loud. I wasn't going to. Then I realized, maybe you were right." Larry sounded surprised. "What?" "You did it the wrong way. But maybe I needed to say it all out loud. I didn't do it to hurt you. You still did." "I know." They sat in silence on the call, two brothers who had taken very different paths. Michael finally broke it. "I'm not mad anymore. But I'm not forgetting either. That's fair." Before hanging up, Michael added, "Don't come back to the house. Not for a while." Larry understood. "Take care of your kids, Mike." "I'm trying." That was the last time they spoke. The kids weren't aware of the call at first. But they noticed the shift. Michael was more open now, not just in what he said, but how he said it. He asked questions. He listened. At breakfast, he asked Marcus how his shoe store was doing. At lunch, he asked Jasmine about her latest business move. He even laughed with Jeff over old memories, moments they'd buried under years of silence. Then, one Sunday afternoon, they found something in the mailbox that brought it all back again. A small, unmarked envelope. Inside, a note written in the same handwriting as the leaked letter. But this one wasn't to the kids. It was addressed, "To the man I used to be." They read it aloud together in the living room. It said, "You gave the world your best. You just forgot to give your children your presents. But it's not too late. The crowd is gone now. You don't need to dunk. You just need to show up. That's your win now. Just show up." They knew immediately it was from Michael. A note to himself. He had written it quietly and mailed it, to remind himself that the game had changed. And he had to change with it. Weeks turned into a month. And in that time, something new took root. Michael sat at the kitchen counter one evening when Marcus came in and placed an old basketball card on the table. It was Marcus as a kid, wearing his dad's jersey. Faded edges. Bent corners. "You kept this?" Michael asked. "I hated it for a while. But yeah." They looked at it together. For a moment, no words. Then Marcus said, "I used to want to be just like you. Then I realized I couldn't. And it pissed me off. But maybe I was aiming at the wrong thing." Michael looked up. "What do you mean?" "You were never going to be perfect. But I think I just wanted you to be around. That's it." Michael nodded slowly. "I know. Marcus hesitated, then said something that hit harder than anything else. "You still can be." Later that night, they played one-on-one under the court lights behind the house. No cameras. No scoreboard. Just father and son. Michael didn't win. He didn't need to. The letter that once felt like a betrayal had become something else entirely. A line in the sand. A point of no return. But maybe that was a good thing. Fans still talked about it now and then. Occasionally a reporter would ask if it was all planned. If the leak was a publicity stunt. But Michael never answered those questions. The truth didn't need defending anymore. A few months later, Jasmine hosted a family dinner, one she planned, cooked, and decorated herself. Everyone came. Even Jeff brought his girlfriend. Marcus smiled more than usual. Michael gave a toast, something he hadn't done in years. "I spent too long worrying about my legacy," he said, raising a glass. "Now, I just want to live it right." The table clapped. Jasmine teared up. Marcus nodded. After dinner, Jasmine walked outside with her dad. "You ever think about writing another letter?" she asked. "I don't need to," he replied. "This time, I'm saying it while I'm still here." She smiled. Then, quietly, she pulled something from her bag. It was the original letter, the actual one he wrote, not the scanned copy that made the rounds online. "I kept it," she said. "Didn't want it to end up in a museum." Michael looked at it, then back at her. "Burn it," he said. "Are you sure?" He nodded. "It's already served its purpose." They walked to the fire pit. Jasmine lit a match and held the corner of the letter to the flame. It caught quickly, curling in on itself until only ash remained. Michael watched without regret. It was never about the letter. It was about what came after. That night, before going to bed, Michael walked into his study. He sat down and pulled out a blank sheet of paper. He didn't write a letter this time. He made a list. At the top, he wrote one word, present. Below it, he wrote 3 names, Marcus, Jasmine, Jeff. He looked at it for a moment. Then he folded it, placed it on the desk, and turned off the light. For the first time in a long time, he didn't feel like a legend chasing peace. He felt like a father building it. And this time, he was staying in the game.